The recent tumble in gold prices and its subsequent rebound has revived the conversation about gold as an alternative currency. My guest today, David Morgan, who's the creator and publisher of the Morgan Report and silverinvestor.com, actually says silver is a better alternative currency than gold. We'll get to that in a second. But first of all, David, I want to get your thoughts on the short-term trading activity. Obviously, we had a huge rout in all the commodities, particularly precious metals, a week or so ago. There's been a rebound, but not as big a rebound in silver as in gold. What do you think is happening there in the short term?
Well, short-term, more volatility. Obviously, we had a huge sell-off, in fact, record sell-off in both the precious metals very recently, and it takes time to work that out, especially it starts compounding on itself. You start getting margin calls, which means more falling. And until that stabilizes, and it's starting to stabilize now, but I see more of the same. I see kind of a broad trading range at these low levels for a while. We'll find a bottom, and we'll start back up, in my view.
And you have a thought on why silver hasn't rebounded as much as gold has to this point?
Yeah, it's always a tough call. When it's a smaller market, it's easier to manage as far as the price for a short period of time, or in some cases intermediate time. I think also the demand side for both is extremely robust, but silver is actually a much smaller market than gold, and there isn't much silver availability in the Asian community. You see that most of the gold buying is coming through Asia, and there's lots of gold there, or at least much more gold available for that whole sector than there is silver. Silver is really kind of thought of not as much as a monetary metal in the Asian countries as it is, let's say, in some other parts of the world.
All right, well, so that's a good segue. Let's talk about why you think it is a better currency alternative than even gold. What is it about silver you think it makes it, that we should be thinking about it as the alternative currency?
Well, to try to be brief, when I wrote the 10 Rules of Silver Investing, rule number one was no one wants to be a prophet of doom, but in an absolute crisis, silver would be the monetary metal of choice. And the reason being is its a value per unit is a lot less than gold. So if you had to go to a barter type of situation, it would be silver. Secondly, silver's been used as money more places and more times than gold ever has. Lastly, if you look at the word silver, it means money in almost every Latin-based language. I mean, if you go into the Torah, the word for money is silver. In the Bible, silver's talked about before gold is money. So silver really has a history of money much, much more than gold does. Gold is money, and gold is used as settlement between nation state to nation state, king to king. But in everyday commerce, it's always been silver when we have been on precious metals or by metallic standards. So that's a fact. No one can dispute that. Will it come back to that? No one knows. But again, since its unit value is less than gold, it would be used more often.
Right. More people probably have silver, quote unquote, lying around the house than they do gold, for sure. They probably know where their gold is more than their silver. So you're involved with a movement in Utah to have silver be adopted as a currency. Where do things stand with that? And again, is this realistic that this could happen? Because obviously the United States of America is pretty determined to maintain the dollar as the one currency that's in use here.
Right. Well, I have to jump on that a little bit, Aaron. I mean, the dollar is a weight of silver, is what it's defined as. But coming back on point, yes, the Utah situation currently, there is a Larry Hilton, who was one that wrote the legislation that was passed and adopted, has a mechanism where you can pay bills. It's a bill pay service using gold only, and it has to be U.S. minted gold. We talked to him recently about silver, but I think it's rather impractical. There is a situation I'll be writing about in the Morgan Report this month that uses a silver, gold, platinum, or palladium, any of the precious metals backed debit card. And I think this is the only way to actually use metal in commerce, because it's transparent to the purchase. You just put your debit card in. They don't know if it's coming out in Federal Reserve notes, or if it's coming out in some certain amount of silver, gold, platinum, palladium. So this is the way to implement it. It's to have a depository, put the precious metals in there, issue a debit card against that, and then go about your business. And I think this is the only way to really put precious metals back in the circulation.
That's very interesting, because that's sort of an electronic means of currency, a debit card, but using silver or other precious metals to back it. Are there any financial institutions that have said that they might adopt this or get behind it?
Well, it has to be a financial institution, because the person that generated this has to obey all the Patriot Act and everything else. So there is a bank that's FDIC insured and everything else that we are familiar with, that it was open-minded enough, and that's my words, to say, yeah, we'll take a look at this, okay. And basically,
what's that bank? I'm sorry.
It's a bank here in the Northwest. I forget the name currently, but it is a member of the Federal Reserve System, and they've adopted this. It's a startup. I mean, I'll be honest, Aaron. I think there's probably less than 30 people involved with it right now, but it has been going for about a year. No problem so far. Accounting takes care of it. And there's always the question, well, what about the profit and loss? And of course, with today's computer technology, there's nothing to it. Whenever you swipe the card, you either have a loss on your silver or a gain on your silver, and that's printed out for you. So it's a very easy accounting methodology if you need that for reporting purposes later on.
So do you think Bitcoin is a legitimate currency as well? And any thoughts on the recent wild ride that Bitcoin has been on?
Well, I'm not sure I wrote that, and one of my staff might have, and I don't want to back out of it. Bitcoin is an alternative digital currency, and of course, there's lots of factors that people like it. I'm somewhat favorable to it, but I'm more on the side of specie money, something you can hold in your hand, or in the case like the debit card where it actually exists and you swipe your card and it comes out of your account. Bitcoin, I think, is something that really gets people thinking and about alternative currencies. And I'm free market. Basically, you could put 10 different currencies out there and let the market decide which one is the best. And I think that's really an approach that we're starting to see, like it or not, governments worldwide or not. This is what we're seeing in the real world. So there is a demand, let's say, for alternative currencies in different forms, and the market will probably decide at some point which one they like the best.